music so loud, Ben?
Oh, no.
The music's insanely loud for some reason. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue. Hope we haven't blown your ears out on YouTube. It's time for the Armist Inquisition yet again, episode 320 on Sunday, the 10th of March, Mother's Day 2024. I'm Phil.
I'm Ben.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone, all the mother lovers out there. And tonight we're very happy to be joined by Nigel Watson. How are you doing, Nigel?
All right, good, yep.
Do you have Mother's Day in Finland?
Different day.
Is it?
It's a different day, yeah.
It's different states as well.
The big one was actually, I don't like saying this even, but I think it was Friday. It was International Women's Day.
Ah, yes.
And I saw loads of blokes buying flowers in the supermarket.
Give over, really?
Yeah. But the thing is as well, 14th of February, Valentine's Day, in Finland, it's called Ystävänpäivä, and it's like they call it Friends Day. So on Valentine's Day, it's not really romantic at all. There's no blokes buying flowers for their wives and girlfriends on the 14th of Feb. That's what's, as I say, called Friends Day, Ystävänpäivä.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it's a bit different.
How long have you been in Finland, Nigel?
Good question. Right. So about 3.5 years, but I lived for 2 years before that. I lived up north in Oulu from 2004 to 2006. I was teaching there.
How much stinky fish have you eaten?
I tell you what, when I used to live in England, I ate a lot more of that. You go down Tesco's fish aisle. And
Gross.
No, it's all fresh stuff here.
I bet it is. It's
get a lot of salmon and trout and sea trout in season and stuff. It's cheap as well. You can get it for like €15 a kilo.
And is it mainly
lots of fish?
Is it like local guys you're buying it off as well, rather than like supermarket?
Yeah. It's all local here. I'll just give you an example.
Because like over here, it's like they have 3 eyes and shit, don't they, in the supermarket?
Well, and it's very expensive considering we're an island.
This is a bit strange, yeah. Right. So,
what kind of fish is that, mate?
It's a tomato, right? But it's grown. It's grown about 2 miles away from where I am now. So they're growing it all the way through the winter, and the idea of it is that. And they do taste amazing. They're pretty expensive because they're obviously grown in heated greenhouses. But the idea of it is that they're picked when they're ripe and they don't have to travel very far. That's a very Finnish thing, is that a lot of the food supply chains are all highly localized. So because it's picked when it's red, it tastes of something.
Nice. Yeah, whereas all ours are green and then you have to sit on
Yeah. Thank goodness you said greenhouses. I thought you were going to say like... Bill Gates has been round injecting his GMO goo into everything.
No, there's also as well. There's a hunting tradition here as well. So, one of my wife's colleagues, this was about a month ago. He'd shot a 200-kilogram wild pig because there's loads of them in the forest. I saw some deer as well. So a lot of people will. Either shoot it themselves, butcher it, or you can just buy it off of people.
Wow, there's
a lot of elk as well. You know, like moose, like they get in Canada. We have those in Finland as well. And that's my father-in-law does that elk hunting, and the meat there is fantastic. It's not much fat in it. It's like, and it doesn't really taste gamey. It tastes a bit like the best steak you've ever had. So.
Nice.
What's the
good like that.
What's the firearm situation in Finland?
Well, yeah, people own guns. A lot of people own guns in Finland.
Is there no restrictions, or is there handgun restrictions? Or
I'm not sure about handguns. It's all revolves around hunting.
Yeah.
So So people, it's not uncommon for people to have guns, and hunting is a very common hobby.
Yes,
and it's a source of food as well. You know. It's a source of food. You go off into the forest and go and hunt elk or deer or wild pig.
Is it kind of part of the culture, would you say, then in Finland? The
big time.
Hunting rifles and going out into the wilderness.
Yeah, big time. It's a big thing. It's a huge thing here.
I remember listening to a podcast a while ago, and they were talking about in the United States back in the day where they used to have maybe some sort of like firearms training. Am I dreaming this? Where they had some sort of firearms training for like kids.
National training.
Yeah,
That's probably right.
But it's
Here we have the like national service, so people learn how to use a gun when they do like army service for 6 months.
Wow.
So some of it, I don't think it's connected to that though. If I'm being honest with you, I think it's more of just a hobby. Because there's a lot of forest here.
Yeah. Is that compulsory, the national service, for a certain age? Or
No, you can opt out of it if you want. You can do like a civil service. But the thing about the Finnish army is that it's not like, the British army, you go off to all sorts of crazy foreign places and fight, don't you? And like kill people.
Yeah.
Whereas the Finnish army's very much historically been a defense force. So my father-in-law was a professional soldier in the Finnish army, and basically the joke is that he played hide and seek in Lapland in tents for a while, fired some big guns that went nowhere. And I think he retired when he was 46.
with an army pension. Was he in World War?
Yeah.
Was he active in World War II then?
No.
Oh,
No, he's like mid-70s, so no.
Right.
He'd be like in the 50s and 60s.
Well, again, that would have been a dicey time because we're into the Cold War era there, aren't we? And I'm guessing Finland probably played a role in that.
Well, back then, there was a much closer relationship between Finland and Russia. Finland and Russia used to trade a lot with each other. And that's a good thing. I think when countries trade with each other, you're less likely to have wars. Trade's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, it's a leveler, isn't it? And
it brings people together. It encourages people to cooperate for mutual benefit. Both sides benefit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the trade wouldn't happen.
Well, it works from an individual basis, doesn't it? Like I can trade with you if you want something, all the way up to a national.
Yeah, exactly.
It's part of being human, isn't it? Building relationships and.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we all traded with each other, this is what makes it interesting with what's happening. We have this altercation happening in Ukraine, and usually the first weapon that the West goes for is sanctions. Seizing assets, stopping trade, putting barriers up, and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, there has been a problem with that in Finland, in the sense that Finland used to export a lot of dairy products to Russia. So a lot of like cheeses, yogurts, milk, that type of stuff. And because of the sanctions, Russia has just done import substitution. So they now they've started to make their own cheeses and yogurts and whatever. So it's created jobs in Russia, and Finland's lost the market down to some stupid politicians.
Well, yeah, I was watching something recently. I think it was last week. It might have been Unheard, the YouTube channel Unheard, or something similar. And they were talking about how arms sales had been diverted. So the sales of weapons from the West, they were going to Uzbekistan and other Istan countries. Well, they were going to Russia, but via these sort of countries under Russia's influence. It was like just making a complete mockery of the whole game,
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen these videos in Russian supermarkets where, they're selling like Heineken beer and all like Western brands, like the big brands, the ones that can afford to, the ones that own the politicians. They've been able to find a way around the sanctions, and they're still exporting to Russia. But obviously, Finnish dairy producers, they obviously haven't got the same contacts with the corrupt politicians.
Yes, they can't afford to hire dozens or thousands of lobbyists to fight their corner in the halls of power. Yeah, we know all about this system and how it works. It can make you so cynical, can't it, Nigel?
Yeah, but I think you have to be. It's important to live in reality, though. Yeah. It would be a very bad idea to just pretend that everything is okay and we live in a democracy and we can trust politicians, and because then if you do that, you're just going to get taken to the cleaners, aren't you? So, for example, at the moment, what I would say is like we should all be using cash always without exception. That's one thing. And we should always be trying to buy from small businesses rather than big conglomerates. So that's, if we're aware of these things, I'm not saying like hoist up the white flag and defeat, like let's accept defeat. What I'm saying is let's adapt our game and realize that we're in a fight. And let's actually start doing something to these guys that's going to hurt them, where it matters for them, which is in their pockets.
Yeah, I mean, two of the advantages of cash that spring to my mind. Firstly, is if enough people are using it, they can't get rid of it, and also it's this idea of privacy. I don't want the state or some 3-letter agency or what's that one in GCHQ?
Oh yeah,
it's a four-letter agency. I don't want any of these buggers being able to just pull out a record of all my transactions over the last 10 years. It's none of your business.
I don't trust them.
And they don't deserve our trust.
Why? I think this is the thing to look at, is this sort of like a contractual relationship. Like why would I want to have a contractual relationship with Rishi Sunak after what he's done? And I'm not even living in Britain anymore, but, like bringing people in on rubber boats, putting up your taxes, gaslighting you. We're on YouTube, so we can talk about, the Britney Spears and the boosters and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Why do I want to transact with that person? He's my enemy. I don't trust him. So the less he knows about me, the better. And the only thing that I would do is that I'm on Twitter as well, and I'll just tweet these people directly, like, sorry, I don't consent to your stupid wars. Therefore, any karmic comeback that comes from it will fall on you, not me, because I don't consent. Just tell them stuff like that.
Wow, that's a great idea, and sort of for your own conscience as well, isn't it?
They're into natural law, so they believe that they can do bad things to us so long as we consent to it. So if we tell them that we don't consent, then that will actually cause them to, I think it causes them to kind of think a little bit. They're worried about the karmic comeback falling on them because we've explicitly said to them that we don't consent. I think that's what was happening, when we had the million people demonstrations in London in 2021. And also, I think when they pushed it in Austria and Germany, when they said, if you don't go to the Britney Spears concerts, we'll throw you in jail.
Yeah.
At that point, I knew that that's when we'd won, because that was their last card. That was their last big gun in their arsenal that they could fire off, and they'd fired it off. Right. And it was obvious from that point, that people weren't consenting to it.
So there was various levels of coercion enacted. Some were carrots and some were sticks, weren't there? So I remember playing the clip. We played the clip of Bill de Blasio, who was mayor of New York City, scoffing a burger and fries. He's going, get your jab, get your Shake Shack, and get your fries. Yeah. This disgusting twat. So that was like, and people were offered lottery tickets was another one. I think maybe in Florida, people were offered lottery tickets to get the jab. So those were like positive ideas, and then there was. But
then the thing is though, Phil, with that is that who's picking up the tab? It's like our taxes that's paying for that nonsense, right? So again, I don't consent to it because I believe that I can spend the money that I've earned far more wisely than they can on my behalf, including bribing people into taking part in an experiment, let's call it.
Yeah.
So they're completely immoral. What they did was obviously completely immoral, completely unethical, and even the carrot, I'd say, is unethical. What I would say though is that I'm sort of libertarian in the sense that I think that people should have the right to choose how they want to live their own life. So I don't know, if Ben wanted to drink 2 bottles of vodka a day and drink himself to death, well, I'd say, well, fair enough, mate. You carry on.
You're halfway there.
I was going to say, if I reduce my
But
intake to that.
do you know what I mean, though? Like, if somebody wants to choose, like, to do, I don't know, skydiving or something really, like this parkour that seems like really scary, it's not for me to say, no, you can't do it. And it would be the same with this experiment. If people wanted to take part in a very dangerous experiment and they chose to do it of their own free will, then, fair play. They can do it. I don't want to stop people from doing that. But obviously what was really wrong was them saying, no Britney Spears, no job, no Britney Spears, no flights, no Britney Spears, no music festival for young kids, or no university place.
No job. And it for care home workers and NHS staff. That was interesting, that the 11th hour U-turn on NHS workers, because they did it to the care home workers, and tens of thousands of them left the jobs in a sector that's already horrifically understaffed. They lost tens of thousands of them, and it looked like the same thing was going to happen with the NHS. But the thing was, you had to get the first shot, and then you had to wait. Was it 8 weeks or something for the second one?
Yeah.
And so, but they left it something like 3 days before the rule was going to come in that people were going to do the U-turn. So the people who'd already made their mind up, they'd already either had or had not had the first shot. So I think they must have known. Look, we know that this many haven't had the first dose yet. We're going to have a absolute crisis. We're going to have to back up. But it just goes to this, like, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile.
Yeah. But it goes back to that point, Phil, doesn't it? We have to consent to it.
Yeah.
And not enough of us had consented. So they had to back off. Or the people who were inclined to consent, all of them had consented. So you were left with, I would say, 30%. Because I think they massively exaggerated the number of people that went even to one concert. I'd say it was like 70%, 30%. Right. I know loads of people that never went to one concert.
Mm. Yeah, and
so I'd guesstimate that at 30%, about a third of people. And it was all mostly, I was quite unusual in that, I was a teacher, university degree and whatever, and I didn't have it. And that was actually very unusual, because most of the people that weren't having it was, Scylla the cleaner. There was a guy, I can't remember what his name now, has worked on the ground staff. There was another guy who was in the kitchens. But the thing that these people were clever, but they just weren't like what I call academic repeater stations. I don't know what like people with good memories. Right. And they can write really fast in an exam and just remember and puke stuff out. That's a major issue that we've got in society. We've got too many idiots flying the plane. We've got too many well-qualified repeater stations who were thick. And they proved that they were thick because they failed the greatest intelligence test that was ever held.
Well, I think the problem is our education system doesn't really train people to be thinkers or critical thinkers. It's designed to make cogs for a machine.
Yeah, it actually, the education system, it works against people who are inclined towards critical thinking. If you're a critical thinker, you're less likely to do well in exams, and you're also going to really upset your teachers, and you're going to upset the school managers, because what you'll do is you'll ask difficult questions in the assembly, and people will go. They'll go crazy at you, because you weren't hugging the party line. You weren't the consensus hugger. And what I noticed, all them suck-ups, brown noses, the people that become head girl or head boy or whatever it is, head of sixth form, these are always the ones that were like, let's not rock the boat. Let's just repeat whatever the standard line is on BBC Radio 4 today and just hug the consensus and just never say anything that nobody else hasn't said previously. Do you know what I mean? That's how I saw it as a teacher and as a student.
I suppose what's interesting about that is that the head boys, head girl personality types who you reference there are the people who are more likely to progress in the machine, and then be high levels of the civil service, the media, the political sphere, commerce, and we just have this perpetual cycle then, don't we?
Yeah, but Phil, you nailed it. 5 minutes ago, you nailed it. You said, well, the system was designed to produce those results. They want repeater stations in those important positions. Like if you're at the top of the November Hotel Sierra, right, and people are going to tell you to go off and distribute sheep dips to people, you don't want anybody asking questions about that. You want a nice, obedient repeater station. And the GPs are like that. They're just the type of person that becomes a GP is somebody who was really good at exams. So they're just a repeater station. And they just hug the consensus. I knew a guy that I went to school with became a GP. And when this Divock 91 was in the air in February time, because I'd watched some of them YouTube videos from China, and I kind of looked, people falling down, and I was a bit confused about it all. I thought, oh, this looks a bit weird. I'm not seeing anything, and then welding up the doors of flats and stuff. So I said to him, this guy said to him, what about this crown thing? The crown thing, right? I'm not going to get you guys banned. I'm just going to talk in the normal code, right?
Hey,
you have to be very careful, mate, because they will. I even got banned for saying November Hotel Sierra out loud.
Really?
Just the word. That was enough to get me banned. I didn't say anything else. So
lucky,
anyway,
right, Nigel, honestly, we've had a clean channel now since Christmas Day.
We have, yeah.
Free of all strikes and warnings. So, I don't want you to censor yourself. Don't worry about it, is what I'm saying. We'll be fine.
Okay. Famous last
living
words,
dangerously.
But anyway, so I talked to this guy. He goes, "Oh no, don't worry about that. It's just one of these Corona VV things, right?" He goes, "It's that and the Rhino virus." He says, "It's what you call a common cold." He said, "So don't worry about that." He says, "If I catch it, I'll be looking forward to a few days off. I won't be in. I'll have a few days off, and it'll be." I said to him, "What about the the slave muzzle?" He goes, "Nah, complete waste of time. You don't need to wear one of them. Complete waste of time." So anyway, about would it be about summertime? When they actually brought in the slave muzzle mandates.
Yeah.
And then later on after that, when the Britney Spears comes in, and that guy made like 150, 160 grand clear, profit in terms of
GP.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were getting like up to 30 quid. Right. They've got a per go for an old age pensioner, 15 quid or so for an normal adult. And they were doing 3, and he's got 2,200 patients on his list. So he coined it in, and they got the actual vials for nothing. And many of the people that actually did the spearing were volunteers. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this guy, he suddenly changes his tune. Oh, it's deadly. And you've got to wear a slave muzzle. So as soon as the guidelines changed, he just hugged the consensus again. The consensus changed. His views changed. No dissenting views allowed, and that's when I kind of fell out with him. Like big time.
You think if those payments would have gone straight to the people, the receivers, rather than the GP?
Say again, Ben.
Do you think if those payments had gone to the receivers, like the general plebs, rather than the GPs, do you think the uptake might have been more? Or?
Yeah, of course it would. Yeah.
Why didn't he do that?
I mean, the uptake would have been more, but they wouldn't have been able to find anyone to stick them.
Oh yeah,
I'm not working for free.
Here's Ben. I can answer that one, right? So you've got people who they're they might be a tiny bit skeptical, yeah, because the body bags weren't filling up at the end of your street and they weren't at the end of mine either. So the people are like thinking, well, why do I need one of these? So what you need is to roll out your trusted local drug dealer, don't you? The one that the clients all trust, the one that wears a suit and tie. Yeah, the general pusher, let's call it initially. Yeah, so they used them as a go-between, because a lot of people back then still trusted their general pusher. But I don't think that that's true anymore.
I think
I'd be very interested to hear what you think. Do you think people still trust the November Hotel Sierra and the general pushers?
I mean, it's probably less across the population.
You'd hope so.
I would think so. Yeah.
And I think
what you guys are out and about, in Preston. So I know people are quite, the people that had went to the concerts, they don't want to talk about it, do they?
No,
but
a lot of people stopped.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say a lot of people stopped early on. Like they maybe had the first two, and then they were offered 3 and 4 and 5, and it's like, whoa, even people.
Then the light bulb went on, didn't it? Bing!
Yeah, even people I know in their 70s with heart conditions said like, no, I'm not having any more. And I was pretty rough after the first few, so.
Yeah.
And they've even had I don't know where you stand on viruses and terrain theory and all the rest of it, but they've even, let's just say they had a positive test and they didn't die. In fact, they've had worse hangovers. So they're not going to keep signing up and keep going back for more of the magic juice, are they?
No, especially if they felt like really bad after having a couple of them. And
saying that though, I was in Lidl. I did my weekly shop in Lidl yesterday and I saw someone with a mask on for the first time in ages, months and months and months.
But you know what, Phil? I reckon some of that is, for some people, it has really like done their natural immunity in, and I think for those people, they're not wearing it as a virtue signaling thing anymore. They're wearing it because they're bricking it. They know that they're Donald Ducked. They're hold below the waterline. That's my feeling when I see somebody who's got one on.
Well, I mean, anyone, if you decide to lock yourself inside on your own for 6 months, your immune system is going to run into troubles when you come out.
Yeah.
We need to come into contact with things regularly, as far as I understand it.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, let's go for the jugular here. For me, I'm my background's economics, so like a glib little phrase is human actions, purposeful behaviour, and what that basically means is that when somebody does something, they've got an objective in mind. So if we think about why the government rolled out the Britney Spears and the boosters, for me, it all points towards Depop. I can't, the way that they played it all, multiple goes at it, the fact that it did do some people in, we know that, and this seems to be a slow acting, what do they call it, like Kool-Aid, poison? Could we say poison? Could we say poison?
We just
I
did,
think we could say poison. It's a slow acting agent, and it all points in that direction. Because if it was just about the digital ID, then they'd have just inside the glass bottles, they'd have just had salt water, wouldn't they? But that definitely wasn't the case. It was the case with some, but some of the batches, it was like, Satan's juice, wasn't it? Like it offed people.
There was a really interesting study came out of Denmark where this lady, physician, researcher, whatever she was, she analysed batch numbers to adverse events, and there was massive correlations. Certain batches were like off the charts, and it does make you think, well, is saline playing a role here or what? You just don't know.
Yeah.
Or is it just general manufacturing inconsistencies? How do I know? What do I know?
No, I think what you do know, Phil, is that there's an awful lot of sports people dying early, a lot of celebrities dying early. There's also, I don't know if you know people yourself who've had health problems, because I do. Like a lot of cancers returning and killing people very quickly. lot of people with like the geezer that used to live across the road from me lost the use of his legs after the Astra gift from the stars, because I think that one was particularly toxic. That was bumping people off a bit too quick, so they had to pull that one. But yeah, I and also it seems to me, with the issues with like sticky blood and stuff like that, it seems to me that it is slow acting. And a lot of people don't know that they've got coinciditis, of the heart muscle, and it's just gonna curtail their lives.
It kind of made me laugh, the AstraZeneca one, because I got my invitation to the concert and I rejected it. And I think it was like 2 weeks later they pulled it, because I was under 40 at the time, 41 now, and I'm guessing I was 38 or 39 at the time. And like 2 weeks later they said, "Oh no, if you're under 40 you can't have that." I was like, what the fuck? What are we doing here, chaps? What are we doing?
But the other telltale, Phil, is like, there have been excess deaths. So what do they do about it? Do they talk? If you had a government that was like genuinely cared about its people rather than the opposite, if you had excess deaths, they'd be like, we've got to get to the bottom of this. But what they actually do is cover it up. Let's not talk about it. Let's censor anybody that tries to talk about it. So that makes me suspicious. Then you have the ONS coming out a couple of weeks ago, completely recalculating the way that they do excess deaths to reduce the number. So for me, it all points in that same direction of, it was about sustainable development, let's call it that, that there's too many people on the planet consuming too many scarce, finite resources. And they just wanted, and this is something that they all write about. To be honest with you, that's, I came to the conclusion it was about Depop, probably by about May at the latest, May 2020. And I don't think I would have come to that conclusion had I not been teaching economics and all the stuff about sustainable development and Agenda 2030. So I knew all about that. And they view us as like, all of this, like useless eaters. I used to say to my wife, even before, before Divot, because we used to live in England and we'd fly over to Finland a couple of times a year and we'd go on holidays, different places. And I used to say to my wife, we need to make the most of this, because I can't see them letting us keep on doing this. Like, why would they allow Ryanair plebs to go to their favorite places like St. Mark's Square in Venice? Like, what do they get from that?
Yeah, it's in black and white.
They don't want us traveling. Why would they want us to eat, clean, good food? Why would they have no, because they're banking on AI doing all of the jobs that used to be done by, our parents. So we're useless eaters, and we just consume all of their resources that they want to keep for their grandkids.
Yeah, there's a document came out, was it last year or the year before? And it was like a timeline of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and where they wanted to be. There were certain time segments, so up to 2030 and then up to 2050, and the air travel one was fantastic. By 2030, you'll be limited to sort of like two short haul flights a year.
Yeah, well, there was another document. I think
and then
it was
2050,
done by
none.
Yeah, well, there was I don't know if you saw this one. I think it was from either Cambridge or Oxford University, and it was about different modes of transport. And they said, like, by 2030, there'll only be 2 airports left in the whole of the UK: Heathrow and I think one up in Scotland.
Glasgow.
So they and you go back to natural law. They have to tell us what they're up to. And then if we stay silent, that counts as consent as far as they're concerned. They can go off and harm us without any comeback because we didn't say no to it.
Right.
That's how they work. I think.
You're kind of complicit by your silence.
Yeah. And a lot of people were complicit when the divot happened. As I say, like people say, oh, how did people get fooled by it? Well, the main reason was that they enjoyed it. There was a lot of the people that I lived with in Surrey who were working up in town, magic circle lawyers, bankers, 2-hour commute, both ways, working from home. Oh yeah, fantastic. Furlough, like 80% of your wages for like doing nothing. And people just got tanked up in the back garden, didn't we? We had that fantastic first. But honestly, that's what was happening near me.
It was a good
That's
summer,
what happening.
wasn't it?
Music was on, sun was out, people getting wrecked. Or it sounded like they were getting wrecked.
Yeah. We were getting
wrecked. I call it like the peasants' pantomime, because people acted like kids, and like, what do they call it? LARPing, live action role play, where people like put on a mask and like, they pretend, let's pretend to be doctors and nurses. Wow. I remember there was some, I'm not going to swear. I'd be very tempted to swear, but I'm not going to. Some like not very nice person that I used to work with.
This guy, cunt.
He used Divot 1991 to get a promotion. The school had like a person in charge of Divot 91, and he put his hand up and went, "I'll do that. I'll sell my soul for a few pieces of silver to do that." And he was like writing emails to the parents about, lateral flow tests and like initials, but he would like write it all out in full because it made him sound more knowledgeable, and he was just getting off on it.
I bet you got a lovely sash to wear over his party overalls.
Yeah, exactly. He loved it. He loved a bit of the covert Nazism. He just loved it. You will follow the green arrows on the floor, and you. For me, that's when I just yeah. And yet they booted me out of my classroom and got me teaching in a. They owned some houses. It was a boarding school, and they owned some houses in the village. And I was booted out of the main part of the school because I wouldn't comply with the satanic slave muzzling and the green arrows and like moronic behaviour inside the dining room. I just wouldn't comply with it. So they bumped me out of my normal classroom and got me teaching my lessons in one of these houses, and the students had to come to one of these houses. I was like, and they were, I just thought at that time it's coming towards, what would it be? It was when the schools came back in September 2020. That's when all the fun and games started. But
that's fascinating. I don't know. They didn't want you being a bad influence on the other.
Yeah, students. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And I would call them out on it as well. I remember they kept on bringing me into meetings because what they wanted to do, I think, was just like get shot of me. They were prepared to fire, a teacher who got very, very good exam results. Loads of kids wanted to do economics, but I wasn't taking their knee to their biomedical fascism. So I remember being in one of these meetings. I've done various I've done a couple of YouTube videos about it, where the head teacher was there, and then there was this another person called Claire, and she was the person. Her job was to be the director of staff, full-time job, and the school only had maybe about 80 members of staff. Full-time job for that, unbelievable. Anyway, so they're going on and on and on about these things, and I'm saying to them, well, like, this is immoral. There's no vote. Where's the votes in the House of Parliament about this? Which there weren't. There weren't proper debates or votes. It was just decided. I said, this isn't democracy. There's something badly wrong here. And I said to them, like, when they're going to bring in the Britney Spears for this, and I was saying this like October 2020. And I said that you're going to be coerced into getting it, because obviously by this stage they've been talking about some green pass in Ireland, and I've been doing my research. You know, when they locked us up, I'd started doing loads and loads of research and watching, you know, Jill Bates's TED Talk, Innovating to Net Zero, you know, all of that stuff. And it's all like on the table. So I said to them, like, you know, they're going to start coercing. And she goes, oh, you don't really think in England they would force people into, you know, having, you know, going to a Britney Spears and the Boosters concert, do you? You know? And I said to her, like, no, they won't do that, but they'll say, you know, no Britney, no job, no Britney, no theatre, no Britney, no. Yeah. So I called that. So I'm waiting now, Claire Wiley, for your apology one time. It'd be very nice to hear an apology, because you were like, you know, basically calling me a conspiracy theorist. And that's so anyway, like at that stage, I just thought it was looking very bad in the UK. It was, you know, the Divok fascism was very, 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 very bad in the UK. And the other thing that I looked at was the population densities. And do you remember this Deagle report?
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
Right.
So
I
just explain to people who maybe aren't familiar with that Deagle report from a few years ago.
Okay. Well, it's wiped from the internet now, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. But basically, Deagle was a website, and it had all sorts of really in-depth information, primarily about the military armaments of various countries, how many tanks they had, what type of missiles. It was like super, super detailed, right? So straight off, you know that this is not the work of some sort of like computer nerd, you know, who's just making stuff up for shits and giggles. This was actually, you know, like there's some information here. So in there was also population forecasts for 2030. And the UK, I think, was a -70 figure. America was
percent.
minus 70%. Yeah.
Yeah.
France, I think, was 65%, something like that. And then I looked at Finland, and it was like -5%. So I thought, okay. And I knew from my wife, Finland's got a constitution, so it was a lot harder for them to bring in biomedical fascism in Finland. For example, it was never a thing here that you had to wear your underpants on your head to go to the supermarket. You know, or I remember when we actually left in November. I still remember this now, filling up my car with petrol on the way down to the Eurotunnel. Like the traffic light system to go into Marks and Spencer's service stations, like fucking people waiting outside
they still
for
have
the
them.
red light to turn to green light. I thought, I've got to get out of here.
Them traffic lights are still at our Aldi, our local Aldi. They still have them traffic lights. They're ready for the rerun.
No. I wasn't prepared to do that. I just wasn't prepared to do that. And I knew, like here in Finland, like you could still get your hair cut. Like all the shops were open. You know. So we moved over here. And it was like fine. A lot of even when they did try to lock down the pubs and cafes, a lot of them opened anyway, and the police just turned a blind eye to it.
Good for them. It's kind of like Sweden, because Sweden was like that,
yeah,
wasn't it? And that's the same neck of the woods, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think the thing is that here there's Finland's. Like it was established in 1917, and Finns had to fight first against the Swedes, then the Russians again, you know, for their independence. And I think Finns are very, very independent people as individuals, so they don't like being told what to do. So I like that. I fit in here, whereas I wasn't fitting in Guildford. You know, there was way too many kind of obedient rule followers there. And they were going along with stuff that was just completely immoral, that was like blowing my mind. Because that's what happened. I used to wake up in the morning. I don't know about you guys, whether you were the same in like 2020, and think, I think by the time they brought in the compulsory slave muzzle, it was beyond doubt that we were at war with our own government, or they declared war on us. It was just indisputable.
Yeah.
And that's when I used to wake up in the morning and think, like, is this a bad dream? Like, what? And yeah, it's awful.
Well, they'd already told us. They'd already told us that they were pointless. You know, you can watch videos from earlier in the pandemic of them saying, "No, you don't need to wear the face mask because we don't think it's." And same with Fauci. Fauci did it in the States as well. And then all of a sudden, in summer, they just flipped on a dime like that and said, "Well, you got to wear them everywhere now." And maybe you should wear them if you go swimming as well. Do you think they'll actually do this? Do you think they'll actually go to the swimming pool and wear a face mask? It's a joke.
It was live action role play, wasn't it? From some of the consensus huggers, the obedient rule followers. But
the thing that was frightening, the thing when that was frightening was the way other citizens reacted when you declined to do it.
Pots and pans, clapping on a Thursday.
The looks you'd get, the confrontations you'd have, the way people would argue over you, and you just, oh my God.
It was a test, wasn't it, guys?
It was terrifying.
It was a test. It was a test of us. And I remember the day that they brought in that, we were down in Portsmouth, and I went to buy a beer or whatever to drink on the train on the way back to Guildford. So I went into this small co-op, and like, you know, some Nazis like, where's your slave muzzles? Like, exempt.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is that all you needed was that one word. That's all you needed to stop bothering with this bullshit that you know does nothing and is pointless. You just had to say
again,
one
Bill,
word.
we go back, don't we, to that consent word. They have to do it with our consent. But so what? I'm sure your audience, they know what happened with you guys. But I presume none of you had the sheep bit. Did you have it?
I've had it. Yeah.
How many did you have?
2 of the very early batch of AstraZeneca.
the worst kind. You got the best one.
And do you feel all right, mate? Do you feel all right?
Yeah.
Have you had any effects? No, being serious.
Developed Tourette's.
Yeah, fine. No ill effects. No.
And when the day that it happened, was there any like short run effects, or was it? Do you think you just had water? Were you one of the lucky ones?
I think I was a bit
like
rough
the day after. Did you have a fever or anything?
Yeah, I remember being rough, but only like a hangover.
Yeah.
And then I got COVID. Like. Well,
several times.
But yeah, I've had it a few times, since then. So.
I got it once, and it was like it was a bad hangover. I've had worse hangovers. I got it in 20. Yeah. I got it all the way through. Well, I say I got it. How do I know? I'm one of those people who thinks I got it in 2019.
Phil, you have to clarify that. You mean you had divot rather than the Britney Spears?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't get the. I'm not tapped. No,
not tapped.
No, there was no way in hell I was having that.
I was in China when it broke out over there.
Ben, you were actually in Wuhan at the lab, weren't you, when it broke out?
Yeah, just trying to buy some meat.
You were at a wet market, I believe. Ben was actually there.
What? I wasn't in Wuhan, but I was in China.
They make all sorts of bold claims. Who knows what they actually do have? Like, do they actually have these weapons, or is it just a BS scare story? Well, nothing is off the table for me anymore. I used to believe once you actually look into some of the stuff like the moon landings and stuff.
Pick your rabbit hole. I just come back to the point of I know nothing, so I'm going to try and be skeptical of everything.
And then, even the nuclear weapons, right? So just a bit of logic. So they dropped some of them on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So all that stuff you taught in the school, about half-life, uranium, blah, 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 half-life, if we have a nuclear war, it's the areas like uninhabitable for half-life, 40 years. Yeah, but how come then they rebuilt Nagasaki and Hiroshima and it was like repopulated PDQ? How does that work?
Same with Chernobyl, I think. Isn't Chernobyl recovering already with wildlife and stuff?
Yeah.
Some of them have 3 heads and shit, but
You know, Yeah, defo. You know, but that bald and bankrupt guy.
Yeah,
Have you heard of him?
we played a clip of him. Was it last week? Of him
think it
going
was
around
last
that.
week,
He was
yeah.
going around a housing estate in the north.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
these windows that
Oh,
were
yeah.
boarded up, but they weren't
Yeah,
boarded up. They looked like doors and
They were
windows.
printed out, weren't they? And
Yeah. But yeah, he's
Well,
been around there, hasn't he?
He was made famous with his blogging in Russia.
Yeah.
So he actually went around Chernobyl, and there's a couple of them. It might even be three half an hour films that are on his channel. He's going up to like these old babushkas who are living in these houses in around Chernobyl, and they initially got booted out, but then they sneaked back onto the land, and they've been living there ever since. You know, they got cattle, like living off grid. They're fine. They've not died of radiation poisoning. So all of this stuff, I'm not always convinced by their threats that they've got these deadly weapons, bioweapons thing or whatever. You know, they might not have.
yeah, you just need the fear, don't you? That's
Yeah.
the whole point.
Anything that's invisible that you can't see,
Did you ever?
and that's where the radiation and the V thing, you know, the four-letter word that's like virus. Yeah, that's what they've got in common. They're both invisible, aren't they?
Do you reckon it's replacing sort of religious aspects in this fear of the invisible and impossible? As in, like in the Dark Ages, we were all scared of doing anything against pick your god. But
Well,
that's
it's the same thing, isn't it?
Now,
because it's the same thing because the religions have been
replaced.
the organized religions have been infiltrated and corrupted. So it's like imagine me saying to you, Ben, right? I'm feeding you Brussels sprouts, and I'm telling you that you're eating strawberries.
Right? Yeah.
I'm feeding you Brussels sprouts, and I'm telling you you're eating strawberries. And then I ask you a question: do you like strawberries, Ben? And what you'll think is they're bloody horrible. They're really bitter and horrible. And that's similar thing that's happened with religions. And people kind of associate, I don't know, say like Christianity with Justin Welby. It's like associating a Brussels sprout with a strawberry. It's the same difference. It's the same thing. They're not the. Do you know what I mean?
That's fantastic.
That's a good analogy.
That's fantastic. We had Jamie Franklin.
But hang on. Here's another one. Here's another one for you. Here's another one. I'm on a roll here. Right. So another one is: imagine talking to somebody and about a film. I don't know, X-Men or something. And this person has got a really strong opinion about the movie X-Men. And then you say to them, have you ever watched it? You go, no, I'm not. But my teacher told me about it at school, and I've watched a few podcasts, so watched other people's opinions about it. And religion's the same as that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who say, oh, they've got very, very strong opinions about the movie, whatever it is, or a book. And it's all based on hearsay. They've never read it themselves.
Yeah, we outsource.
That's just stupid.
We outsource our knowledge base, don't we? We put our trust in institutions or individuals, charismatic individuals, and we think, well, they've done the work. They've worked this out for us, so there's no need for us to pursue this. We don't need to look into the moon landings because NASA told us that it happened. Yeah, and I trust them. So we outsource.
And it's like a brand, Phil, isn't it? It's like a brand. It's like if I associate myself with this brand, you know, elements of that brand's personality will rub off on me, and people will look at me a little bit more favourably because I've got close to that brand, and some of its magic will have rubbed off on little old me. And it's the same thing. It's like, you know, Christianity. It's like it's a social control mechanism, right? And what that is just pure repeater station. It's like what they were told at school by some sort of esoteric teacher, like, you know, Marxist teacher, or, you know, some sort of intellectual on the telly box, and they just buy into it. It's like, read it yourself. Like, don't have opinions about films that you've not even watched. It's a bit stupid.
I know.
It's like people who wind, right. Stephen Fry's one who winds me up, and another one who. Well, oh, sorry, I nearly said. But I've had a number of. I've been in numerous conversations where people have said, you know, if it wasn't for religion, the world would be such a great place, such a better place. Look at all the wars that religion has caused over the centuries, and I just think, for fuck's sake, can you just look at the 20th century? Stalin, Chairman Mao, Adolf Hitler. They didn't need to justify. They didn't need anyone any higher power to justify their murderous rampages.
No, like Stalin was an atheist, wasn't he? Hitler wasn't.
It was the most deadly century in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
And none of it was pinned on God or religion.
No, in fact, it was all like, if you think about Pol Pot, they're all atheists, aren't they?
But what it is someone's seen a meme on Facebook and thought, oh, well, that sounds intellectual, so I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
Or they've seen a video of Stephen Fry say it, so they think, oh, well, Stephen Fry, he seems like a clever guy.
Yeah.
Went to Cambridge.
That's it.
I'll repeat
That's
it. And they just don't, you know, again, it goes back to like where we started with the critical thinking. We we tend to take things in and repeat them without analysing them and trying to like prove your concepts before you regurgitate them.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I say, when I was a teacher, the really sad thing is that the exam system encourages students to do the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
So you'd have a question, like an exam question, and students would go, well, how do I answer that? Like, what do they want me to write? So that straight away, it's just sort of like they're thinking like just in one track, you know, there's one way to answer this. There's no other valid approach that you can use when, you know, so you're just like restricting free thinking, aren't you?
Well, it seems to me, as far as going back to education, one thing that would really, I think, help the situation is if employers stopped focusing so much on grades and achievements and put more emphasis on the interview. Because I think that's part of the problem is, like you mentioned a few times, examinations. And they're just a mechanism of categorizing people for a certain attainment level.
Yeah.
They've been able to memorize a certain thing better than someone else, so they've achieved a grade. It doesn't tell you anything about the personality, their work ethic, their conscientiousness, their morality. Nothing. It's just you've remembered more stuff than that other guy, and that makes it easy. It makes it easier for us as an employer to separate the wheat from the chaff, where really what we should be doing, rather than just sitting down for 10 minutes to talk to a potential employee, maybe we could have some sort of thing where, hey, come for a week. You know, I've got 10 candidates for a job. We're going to take each of them for a week and just see how you are, see what you like with other people. Are you a good fit for our organisation? What's your work ethic like? Do you turn up on time? Etc.
Sounds like a lot of hard work like that, Phil.
No,
you'll get better employees, though.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, though, Phil, is that what it's worse than that in the sense that the exam system, it actually favours students who are obedient rule followers. That's who it selects for.
Right.
And as you said, like, you know, half an hour ago, that's what they want. They don't want anyone who's capable of critical thinking. They don't want that. I can't remember the exact words, but there's that great George Carlin clip where he talks about the education system and they don't want people who can think. And it's true, they don't.
Yeah, he's a wealth of excellent quotes. It's a shame he's not around anymore, George Carlin.
But, you know, to be honest with you, I think it was a massive test, wasn't it, of people? And, you know, high stakes game, really, I would say.
I like that meme that went around, and it was from one of Hitler's rallies, and it's like a picture of the crowd, and you've got like 1,000 people doing the salute, and one guy just stood there with his arms folded, and it was something like, the text was something like, the test has happened and you failed or something, unless you were. I can't remember. I'm butchering it now, but yeah, I get your point.
I used to have that picture up on my classroom wall.
Really? Oh God, I wish you were my teacher, Nigel.
Well,
you know, I hated school.
I used to have all sorts of. I had. Do you remember the Independent had a front page of Osama bin Laden when he was a good guy. You know, when he was in charge of the Mujahideen fighting
The Soviets.
I had a big cup of that all blown up on my classroom wall.
Was that
and
when...
I had another one of, you know, when they Obama, I think it was Obama, he bought them all them Toyota pickups. That's when Mujahideen became ISIS and they got rebranded. Do you remember that?
I don't
Suddenly
remember.
they were all driving around in Toyota pickup trucks that the Americans had bought their own enemies. It's like, so if you say to the students, like, can you work that one out? What's going on here?
I know the story of the US funding the Mujahideen when they were fighting the Soviets, the Soviet-Afghan war, which was like 1979 to 81, something like that.
Yeah. But they actually, when they were ISIS, they got their hands on, they were all white, these Toyota flatbed trucks. And ISIS was there, you know, with the black flags and that.
You know,
so it's the safest. Where did they get them from?
Do you know that was?
And they got it.
Sorry, I was just going to say that was an interesting time. Going back to that time period, David Cameron, the pig shagger, was in charge, and he was. They were gun ho for airstrikes against Syria, and like people were fed up. There was like Middle East intervention fatigue all over the West and the United States, and they couldn't get away with it, could they?
No,
they were trying to get rid of Bashar al-Assad.
That was a very, very interesting point in time, wasn't it, in Britain? Because I was living there when this was all happening, like you guys were. So there was the 2 million man march in London against the Iraq War too.
Yeah.
Then there was also the murder of Dr. David Kelly. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that Blair did that, you know, because it was in the public domain that him and Alistair Campbell had sexed up this weapons of mass destruction dossier that they just nicked off the internet from some PhD student and presented as their own. Then they never found those at WMD.
Yeah. Oh, I remember it all. The Hans Blix. We sent Hans Blix in. He just needs a bit more time, Hans Blix. No. Get him out. We need to start bombing. And there was that thing with Robin Cook at the time. Robin Cook like died in. Yeah. Did he have a heart attack on a mountain or something?
Yeah, that's it.
And he was vocally against the war in Iraq, wasn't he? He was a cabinet minister at the time.
You'll like this one, guys, right? So you know when you get some normie and they throw the conspiracy theorist thing in your face, I always say to them, like, come on then, what's your favourite conspiracy theory? I say to them, like, mine is that Saddam Hussein is conspiring with ISIS to deploy weapons of mass destruction against the UK at 45 minutes notice. I say to them, that's my favourite conspiracy theory, but it was a pile of bullshit, wasn't it? Yeah. And never mind, it only led to the death of 1 million Iraqis.
My favourite
by
one is
progressive
the only thing,
people like you who supported this stuff.
My favourite conspiracy theory is the only thing that opens the door of Fort Knox is those little, like, T-shaped keys that you get on cans of corned beef. And they've hidden it in plain sight.
For fuck's sake. Jesus. Well, Nigel, we've blown over an hour already. I can't believe how quick it's gone. I really wanted to talk about Christianity with you, but you're going to have to come back and do it again. Because I'm really interested in Christianity and theology in general, and what your sort of personal.
Should we talk about that for like half an hour or so? Because it's the thing that you guys have got to remember is I'm 2 hours ahead of you, and I'm 58, so I need my bedtime.
Absolutely.
And my wife, my wife's going to work tomorrow as well. So
and Ben has an early out tomorrow, so we have to wrap this up. But please come again in the future so that we can carry on.
Let's just talk very quickly about Christianity. So for me, I used to go to taught at Christian schools, basically Church of England schools. So I used to go to chapel every Friday. That was like had to do it, right? So I sat in loads of Church of England services. And then one day, I remember about 7 or 8 years ago, I remember thinking to myself, like, I've never read the Bible properly myself, and I've never read the Quran, right? So I thought, I bought a copy of each, read the Quran first. That was like, I didn't get on with that very well. It's like, yeah, it wasn't. There wasn't any interesting narratives in it. And then I read the Bible. I read the New Testament. So it was a good news version of the Bible. So it was like written in comprehensible English rather than the King James version, which a lot of people are very snobby about. And it's all thee, thou, shalt, thou, Anyway, so I bought a good news version. So it's in like understandable, clear English. And it basically starts off with the Gospel of Matthew. So it's Matthew, Luke, and then it ends up with John. So reading these stories, it's basically about the life of Jesus Christ. And it's in all of the four Gospels, there's a lot of commonality, the same points in time where Jesus spoke to people and he spoke about various things. I don't know, Sermon on the Mount, various parables. It's all recorded in those four Gospels. And there's a lot of it's like four different authors recording the same interview, if you like. That's very much the vibe that I got with it. And then the other thing I noticed when I was reading it was just how much of it just like rang true. There was so much truth in it. Like, for example, just give you one example. Treat what's called the golden rule. Treat other people like you would like to be treated. So when I was reading the four Gospels of the New Testament, I was like thinking, well, there's nothing that I really disagree with here. A lot of these, all of it is, I agree with all of it. So I then carried on, and you come to, after John, you come to like the book, the book of Acts, it's called, and this is about the church after Jesus went. And there, all of a sudden, it's very, very different from the four Gospels of the New Testament, in the sense that I think that some of that might have been corrupted, because in the book of Acts you've got, and then also you've got Paul, the Apostle Paul, who wrote various letters, Romans, Thessalonians, all of that. And he's talking about how good Christians basically obey the government. And I was like thinking, no, I don't. This ain't ringing true. This ain't ringing true. And a lot of the things that Paul was saying was running contrary to what Jesus said. Basically, Jesus saying your life here is a test. You're being tested. You putting it crudely, don't be an arsehole. Be a good person, because there's consequences if you're not a good person. And I believe that is true. Even, I'm not talking about what happens to you after you've drawn your last breath, but what I've noticed in my life is that people that do good things, people who are nice towards other people, they tend to be happier people. Like, for example, the school that I taught at, it was quite an expensive private boarding school. This last one that I taught at. So there's loads of loaded people there, like, private jet loaded, all unhappy, aggressive, angry, unhappy people. So, I've always believed in that too, that money doesn't bring happiness. What brings happiness is love and caring about other people, trying to do good things for other people, treating other people in a way that you would like to be treated. So if you haven't read it, I'd read that one of those four Gospels of the New Testament and just read it for yourself. You could probably read it in about, first one's Mark, as I say.
It's the shortest, yeah.
Yeah, just read it and then have a think about it and then chill. Just don't think about, this is about trying to, because this is the other thing that I would say. When I actually read the Bible, I thought, this ain't like the chapel. This is like the stuff this is like, because in the chapel, it was, what they were really teaching was Paul, which is, accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, accept his sacrifice of blood on the cross, and basically all your sins will be forgiven. So you don't actually have to change your life. You don't have to change your behavior. You don't have to treat people better. You don't have to learn in your life. All you have to do is just apologize for it. And you can keep on making the same mistakes, you know, treating people badly. You know, you can call that sin if you want to. And it's all okay. Jesus will forgive you. That's not what Jesus says in the Bible.
Yeah, it's this
He's
massive,
pretty hardcore. He's pretty hardcore.
There's a massive fissure there between Paul and his
I believe so.
Faith in Jesus Christ, and then you've got the James side of the church in Jerusalem, or Jesus' own words, where it's about good works. You're judged on good works, not faith. And some people will say, well, it's a bit of both. You know, you need to be judged on good works and faith. But yeah, this is a massive conversation. You need to have you looked into the Paul was Josephus, Flavius Josephus? All right, I'll send you a link because it's fascinating.
Yeah, please do.
You might like it.
Yeah, who was it we had on?
My feeling on it, Phil. My feeling on it, Phil, is, you know, this is a way to get through to atheists. You know, have you heard of Mark Passio and like the idea of natural law?
Yeah.
You know, Passio says what you must do is like don't steal stuff, don't steal people's property, don't steal people's free will by deceiving them or trying to lie to them, don't assault people, don't rape people. You know, like all of that's in the Bible. That's what. You know, you can go back to, like, say, even in the Old Testament of the Ten Commandments. But what Jesus did, he was like basically reminding people of that stuff. Live a good life. Like most of us know the difference between right and wrong. But I think what happens is that I believe, look, honestly, I believe that good and evil exists. And I believe that Satan exists too. When I say on my Twitter feed or in my videos that, you know, I believe that people can be demonically possessed. People can be under the influence of Satan, definitely. And Satan hates humanity because, you know, we were made in God's image. And Satan is extremely jealous of that. He wants to do us in. That's what I believe. And, you know, the other thing, and I'm getting the vibe here from Ben. I think you might be, are you a bit of an atheist, Ben?
Not really. Agnostic, perhaps.
Agnostic, okay. Because the other thing as well, I remember at school was, you know, it'd be like, ooh, he's a creationist. Like I never used to, but you'd hear people like mocking creationists. You know, whereas I think to people like now, I think to myself like, you know, this Big Bang, like everything was created from nothing. You know, something went bang. We don't know what it was or where it came from, and then we've got the Earth, and then like there was a blob of slime that came from somewhere, and it became a tadpole, and then it became a gerbil, and then it became a monkey, and then it became a human being. It's like that's fucking stupid. I'm not buying that. You know, the story of, like, I believe all of this stuff. Our consciousness, for me, is just proof that we have a creator. My car was designed by Seat. Seat created my car. Like, I believe that, you know, our Father who art in heaven, I believe that there is a God who created us. And I don't believe, I used to like Star Trek and that as a kid. I don't believe that there are other planets. I believe that
communist propaganda. Communist propaganda, Star Trek.
I don't believe it. You know all that stuff about aliens? I think aliens are demons. And I think demons definitely exist. You can see it. Often you can see it. If you mention Christianity to some people, they just go nuts. just go nuts. You know, for me as a Christian, I don't mind anybody, like, you know, I don't demand that people convert to be Christians or whatever. It's their choice, because I understand that God created each and every one of us with free will, and it's up to us. But, you know,
Amen.
This sort of thing about aliens and all of that outer space, and, you know, like we're just an accident, you know? How satanic is that? This planet, it's just nothing special.
Nothing
right?
special. That's the key. That's the key.
You're
There's
nothing special about you. You're just an accident. You're an accident of gene mutations. It's like
mostly
pull the other one.
Yeah. Well, Nigel, on that note, we need to let you go. This has been fabulous. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Nigel.
And hope it links in the show notes, folks. I looked on YouTube and like it showed. I found a tab that I hadn't seen before, and it says who your subscribers also subscribe to.
Was it the only tab that wasn't Pornhub?
It was the only tab that wasn't Pornhub, and top of the list was Nigel.
All right.
So, I don't know good. So I guess we have a lot of common followers.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah. To be honest, it's been very, very, very nice to chat to you guys, to blokes from Preston. So as a Lancashire man myself, it's been very nice. It's been very, very kind of nice talking to you guys.
Excellent.
So thanks for having me on. And then if you want to have me back on again, talk some econ or whatever, very happy to do so.
Absolutely. Let's do it again in like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
Catch up, see where things are. All right. Thanks, Nigel. Right. Absolute pleasure.
God bless, guys.
Have a good weekend. Cheers.
And you. Cheers, guys.
We're gonna open the phone lines.
Oh, eh?
Yeah, in about 10 minutes. We're gonna have a 5-minute break. Let you lot
break.
Have a comfort break. Yeah,
a bio break, I've heard it called.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let you lot digest that conversation with Nigel. We'll open the phone lines and the Skype, and if any of you want to ring in, we'd like to hear from you. Maybe Nigel's raised some points that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. Anyway.
Chuck us a line.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. Take care, and thanks for tuning in. Ciao.
Bye.